Hi, everyone. I'm Vivian Manikin, along with Cricket Wallace, and we co-chair the REDI Committee, which is coming, okay, which is the Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, for those of you who don't know. And now, Jeff, first slide, please. We started our journey a year ago in the early summer, and we were charged with two considerations. One was whether or not we should try to do this work as a circle, whether we could handle it, and if so, how. And the other consideration was the lack of racial diversity in our membership, and that's long been a challenge, and whether we should tackle that as well. We had a wonderful summer group that came together to consider both of those things. And we started out incredibly frustrated because we didn't really know where to begin. And we decided that we should just start with ourselves. We should just do the work ourselves of trying to figure out what racial equity and structural racism and all that meant to us. And so we read a lot, and we looked at documentaries, and we built trust, and were able to be very honest with each other, and started to really bond as a group. This group made up of some steering committee members and several not. It was just an amazing group. And at the end of the summer in September, we were able to make some recommendations. The first recommendation was from the advice of other people and consultants that we had talked to about confirming the commitment of the active leadership in our group, which is, of course, the steering committee. That was our first thing. Secondly, to create a steering committee that would help steer the progress of racial equity through the committees that are already working in the steering committee, and also other leadership things in there. And then to also get a consultant when we needed one, when we hit stumbling blocks. And the other consideration was that about the racial diversity in our membership, we decided that that should not be our primary goal, that grant making and education are our primary work, and we need to set aside recruitment and retaining women of color as hopefully a byproduct of working with ourselves and to get ourselves ready to do more. Okay, next slide. We took our advice, and we took our advice. With the steering committee said that we should have a committee, a REDI committee, and that's who these people are. And we meet weekly, and we work through all the other committees in steering, and we report to them every month. And it's just a wonderful committee to work with, and we're committed to several years of doing this work to try to get it slow and steady and everyone on board. So the next slide that I have is about the assessment, which is what Cricket and I wanted to start with, to confirm that we had the commitment of our steering committee. We spoke with all the co-chairs of all the committees and all the officers on steering, and we really got a lot of feedback from them that they needed, or we all needed, some guideposts, a tool to use to try to do the education in our membership. And so we decided that those goalposts or the guideposts should be our communication language. And that's where I'm going to turn it over to Cricket to take it to the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here today. And thank you, Vivian, who is a superstar partner and co-chair and always energetic and optimistic. And thanks also to our whole committee for their tireless work this year. I'd like to spend some time talking about two big initiatives of our committee this spring. The first is the REDI Communications Workgroup. And you'll notice as we go through these slides that the tasks that we started this year are all in yellow. So the REDI Committee Communications Workgroup was the first, from our internal assessment, it was the first major task we started. And there are two main reasons we started with the communications language. The first is in our interviews with all the committee co-chairs, there was a lot of questions about where are we going with all of this. They wanted guideposts to help set the direction for which they should lead. So we heard the message loud and clear that we needed to start with our guiding language. So our vision, mission, values, and a REDI statement. And this first step was also confirmed by consultants who we talked with. They advised that our language needed some updating to better reflect our values. And they recommended starting the work with our leadership to confirm the dedication of the leadership to this work, and also to get everyone going in the same direction. So, so that was the start of our work group. Can we go back to the other slide, please? Okay, so it's just important to note here that the intent of this work group is not to change the mission, but to refresh the language we use to describe it, our goals, and the work we do. So, not changing why we're here and the work we're doing, but how we talk about it and giving some new guideposts for that. So, who was in the work group? We were 17 women. It was composed of the REDI Committee and steering committee members, and represented every circle committee. Next slide, please. So we knew we could not do this work alone. We needed the perspective and expertise of an outside consultant and facilitator. We conducted a search and interviewed two, and chose Tanae Harris of Tenacity Consulting. She turned out to be a perfect fit for our work group. She has experience with other grant making and nonprofit organizations, and she also lives here in Baltimore, so she knows the city well, and she knows the dynamics of the city well. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit about the process we went through in the work group. So in the green boxes, facilitated by Tanae Harris, we met a total of 6 times. The first half of the work was devoted to a collective learning journey, in which together we learned and developed understanding of the impact of systemic racism. There were 2 sessions that were especially transformative to our group. One was based on charity versus justice in philanthropy, and the other was about how language can be used as a weapon. So in this process, we also looked at our current mission, values, and website, and really took time to consider them from the perspective of other constituents of ours. And it was in that process that, as a group, we came to realize that we have unintentionally been using language that has separated us from our community, alienated potential members, and also possibly offended grant applicants. So it was with that new understanding that we turned to actually looking at the language and refreshing the language in our guiding documents, and trying to align it with our intentions. So moving to the blue boxes, we're just now completing that work of finalizing that language. We introduced it to the entire steering committee last week, including the incoming committee co-chairs. And we had a great discussion with that group, and they have given us permission to go ahead and bring introduce the language that we came up with in the work group to the full membership. So with that approval and okay, over the course of the summer, we plan to hold a series of open member discussions to introduce the membership to the language we came up with, and really have be able to explain it, be able to go through the process with more groups of people. And importantly, we're trying to present this and introduce the language for discussion. We're not asking for any kind of commitment to it at this point. We want to make sure we have a full circle conversation about it. So the second big thing we did this spring, so next slide. There we go, is relates to member education, as it relates to racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. So the Circle Reads group of the Education Committee brought Kanjwani Fidel to Circle Reads in April. And this led to 2 meaningful discussions about the impacts of systemic racism among our members. We had one talk just among members, and then we had a second talk where Connie talked about his book. A second event was the March Full Circle meeting. Dr. Lawrence Brown came and spoke about his book, The Black Butterfly, The Harmful Politics of Race and Space in America. And he really is an amazing speaker and had the receipts to back up his points about how the policies of our city led us to become hyper segregated. Next slide, please. Following Dr. Brown's talk, we emailed a survey link to everybody and asked 2 main questions. The first question was about people's interest in deepening their understanding and analysis around racial equity and inclusion through the Giving Circle. 100% of the respondents said they were interested in doing that. And the second question we asked about was what formats people would want to do that kind of learning in. The 2 most popular were in small discussion groups and a speaker series that would be in addition to regular Full Circle meetings. So we also received other extensive comments in that survey, which will be very helpful as we move forward in our work along these lines. So with that, I'd love to turn it back over to Vivian to talk about where we're going from here.
So I can't let an opportunity go by where I don't compliment my co-chair, who is absolutely amazing. So she's just great to work with. I'm sorry, I didn't say that first off. I had a question about why I've got parentheses around the word plan, 3-year plan. And it's because everybody makes plans, but we do a especially good job of continually evolving our plans. So this is what we're planning right now. Along with the internal assessment, if you'll go along that bar, every year we get new leadership in our circle. So we always will be reaching out to new leadership and working not just on steering, but as we go, maybe the team leaders or the liaisons in grants, or other levels of leadership, we're going to go there too and start conversations. So that's the internal assessment. The marketing and communications, we're going to work with the website and the newsletters to try to be very thoughtful with our words and hopefully be in sync with the new language that we've been working hard on with the communications work group. In the member education, we're basically opening it up to lots of opportunities. We're going to have open discussions around the language that we're talking about, but also other forums. I know many of you out there have already done book groups around racial equity and have done implicit bias training and all kinds of other things. So there will be opportunities with small groups or member panels or speakers. So we're going to work with Education Committee to make those possibilities out there, and also with other people who have expressed interest in working in member education. The grant making and data collection we're sort of putting together because when we look at grant making and evaluation, we will always want to keep our technology people very close by. I know Anne was talking about Mary Ann, but there are also several others who work with our technology and need to be aware of any plans that we want to try. So that's why we're keeping those kind of together, but we're definitely going to be looking at grant making through the racial equity lens. And then the membership models in blue, because we wanted to set it aside. We want to, just as we worked individually on our individual self in that summer study group, we need to work as a circle on ourselves. And we need to try and understand how we can be more equitable and inclusive before we start on this membership models thing. So back to my esteemed co-chair, Cricket.
You can see from what Vivian just said that all the work going forward is going to take a lot of coordination, and we need to have the, each lane is going to be needed to work with the other lanes to make it all possible to move in the direction of, really looking at our work through a racial equity lens. So what can you expect from us in the near term going forward? First, we will be sending an email in June with the recommendations from the REDI Communications Work Group that I talked about earlier. And then we will be scheduling a series of open member discussions through the summer to get input and feedback on that language and also talk about next steps. I believe our first one is tentatively scheduled for June 16th, but we will be doing a lot more communicating about that. We also, as far as communications went this year, the REDI Committee wrote 3 articles in 3 different newsletters. We wrote an article on the website, and we did an introduction at the March Full Circle meeting. We also know that we would like to do more communicating going forward. And so we're considering ways to reach more people more of the time, possibly through our website, possibly through a listserv. And we'd also love thoughts on that in our open forums over the summer. Then next fall, we will be rolling out opportunities for further member involvement in all the work ahead. We have all those orange lanes that Vivian showed will require a lot of work and people to be involved. We'll do some REDI specific programming to be, both for personal growth and also growth as an organization. And none of this change will happen quickly. None of it will be big and a big announcement. It'll be incremental and over time. So that's what you should look for from us. If you have any questions, you can contact me and Vivian at REDI@BWGC.org.